artist, and I've been teaching for over 50 years, teaching children and teaching adults, and I really enjoy the teaching. And I paint everything that I see. If you're wondering where I get my inspiration, we travel. We travel all over the world. Also, I come from New York, and New York is an interesting place to paint. It's very colorful. Buildings, the traffic, the cabs, the people. And now, get your palette, get your brushes, and let's get started. My name is Judy Wengrovitz. I'm an artist, and I live in Fairfax County, Virginia. I'd like to welcome you now to From the Painter's Palette. I'm going to do a painting for you today, and I decided to paint a foreign, colorful scene of Venice. So watch closely, because I'm going to use some different techniques. The first thing I'm going to do in this painting is to put some masking fluid on some of the windows and some of these pilings. The windows are outlined in Venice in white. So here is my masking fluid. And something new. I poured the masking fluid into a little container, actually a film canister, to keep it fresh and movable. I've already put masking fluid around the windows, but I will show you how. I used a bamboo pen. And bamboo pens come in different sizes. I picked one out that had a narrow point. I'm going to go ahead and show you in one little spot, right here, how I put the masking fluid on. A little hard to do it upright. Most of the time, well, actually, most of the time it works better, but I put it on like this. So the first thing I probably will do is to work on some trees and some bushes. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow. Can't tell you what color yellow is because I have a lot of yellows here. And I'm mixing my green with, this is a hooker's green, by the way. Don't be alarmed, as I say, if you see these things really bright, because I can go over them with other colors and completely change them. In fact, I'm already changing things right now. You have to look closely, and you will see this green that I'm using now is mixed with a little blue. You can see the difference between these two greens. Okay, now here's a big bush, and this bush actually is covered with flowers. And I've been trying to decide how to put those flowers on. I will go back over the bush now, and I'll show you that in a few spots I use my masking fluid to preserve the white of the paper. That's what I did over here, preserving the white around the windows. So let's see if I can get another green here. And this time I'm mixing, let's see what this looks like. Yep. You can see probably some of the masking fluid. I only put it in a few spots because I'm going to do something a little different. And as I say, I'm putting color all over so that I don't get lost in the painting. Probably could use a bigger brush, but sometimes I get favorite brushes. By the way, there are 2 drips over here. They're not that serious, actually, but I do want to show you how to get rid of them. So I'm going to dry my brush like this, and then I'm just going to touch the drip to the dry brush and it lifted the drip. Now this is a hooker's green. I'm changing it right on the same bush, but that doesn't make any difference because I'm going to change the whole thing soon. Wish I was back there right now. These are little, oh, I have a lot of drips now. And the reason I have all these drips is because I'm painting upright. I got some more bushes over here. So let's add a little yellow. Oh boy, it's a little bright yellow. Yellows come in many colors. Now, all of a sudden, I added a lot. Well, okay, let's leave it this way. It's very blue. It's really fun to try out all these different greens. You have a choice. You could buy some greens, but you're better off mixing them yourself. Okay, while the top, more drips. While the top of this painting dries, let's work down here a little bit. Okay, these are 2 gondolas, and all this here is water. Let's see what I'm going to do with this water. Okay, let's try another color, and this time I'm going to paint these. This is a Cerulean Blue. I'm going to paint the cover. I guess it's the cover of the gondola blue. I almost forgot I don't have to go around these pilings because I can go right over the pilings since they have masking solution. Let's paint the bottom of the boat. Now, let me show you. This gives me an opportunity to show you how to make a black. Okay, I have a choice. This is, whoa, that's really dark, isn't it? This is Ultramarine Blue, and let's go ahead and look for my burnt sienna. Let's see if it looks black. Yeah, sure does. It does look black. And I mixed the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I'm not making it super dark because I will do that a little bit later. Go right over the piling because I can. As a matter of fact, right over here you can see how adding water to that black mixture that turned it gray. Let me just show you this. I can make all shades of gray. Even though I don't want a red bottom, I have to show you that I'm going to add a little tiny bit of Alizarin Crimson. And let's see. Right here, I put it here specifically to show you that if I want to get my gray having a little bit of color to it, I could put a little drop of Alizarin Crimson. All right, there are some other boats back here, and let's see where they are. There's another boat. I think this boat is going to be dark. Been to Venice and taken a ride in a gondola. Oh, very romantic. Let's say, I think it's over here is the other boat. I think I'm going to outline this because I'm getting lost. another boat back here. Let me put, this is a lot of water reflecting here. Let's see how I'm going to reflect it. Since I said this was a colorful painting, I'm going to try and reflect a lot. Well, before I reflect some of this color, let me put some color on my buildings. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to use a different brush just to show you the variety of brushes that can be used. Okay, this brush is got flat hairs like this. It also, and I'm going to show you how to do that later, it also has a beveled edge. Here's a brush, has a very, very nice point to it. Here's a brush, as you can see by me holding it up like this. There are 3 brushes here. This one is much narrower. I'm going to use this big brush, and I'm going to put some, wet it. And I forgot to mention something that was very, very important. I don't want my painting to be wrinkly. So what I have done is taken a piece of watercolor paper, which is a little heavier, feels like a piece of cardboard almost, and I took that watercolor paper, I sprayed it with water at home, and then I went and I stapled it down to this board, so when it gets wet and when it dries, it will be perfectly flat. And if you put it in a frame, it will stay flat. Now I'm going to wet it. Okay, let's see what I'm going to do. These are colorful buildings here. And that's a cadmium orange that I had used, mixing it with again, I'm adding a lot of water to this. Just want to get the feel of what I see in all these colors, lifting up all these drips, which you wouldn't get if you worked flat on a table. You don't have to work probably as vertical as this. And I used, I believe it was called Scarlet Lake, as a color that I mixed with my orange. I'm mixing my orange, and this time I'm mixing a little bit of Alizarin Crimson. Might want to get it even darker. You can see, and that's sort of exciting, you can see the outline of those windows now as I put the darker color over them. I mixed 2 other colors now to get it even a different color. And these 2 colors that I mixed were the crimson and a little bit of the green. And I'm going to make the building a little bit on the rough side, because in Venice, the buildings are pretty old looking. I'm mixing my crimson with blue and green and pretty much almost everything I have on my palette here. Okay, and I forgot. one little spot here, back to my orange here. As I say, it's dripping a lot more, so I'm using this pretty wet, and I actually have a paper towel in front of me, so when I put the stroke of paint there, I sort of tap it a little bit on the paper towel to get rid of the excess water. We're going to be doing the reflections of the boat and the reflections of some of these things in the water. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take a little bit of blue. Well, it's a little, supposedly the mixture that gave me sort of a gray. One thing I did forget to do, oh, I know what I forgot to do. It's a biggie. I forgot to go ahead, and I think I'm going to use a pencil to make sure I do it. I forgot to put my masking fluid on the reflection. So I'm going to draw the reflection of these pilings. And I'm going to just paint around it. I could put the masking fluid on now, but it will take too much time to dry and everything, so I think I will just paint around it. Okay, and there's a wall here, and the wall has some white in it. This is where the white is. Okay, and I could reflect any color I want. Of course, I have to concentrate now and make sure I don't paint over this reflection. And I'm doing wiggly lines to get my reflection. I'm just not doing plain, flat, straight lines. And I keep working with my burnt sienna and ultramarine to get that blackish look. And here are, as you can see, now I have the opportunity to paint a little maybe green in there to reflect some of these bushes. So let's paint a little green and reflect some bushes. And this doesn't have to be exactly the reflection, but it's, or painting the same size as the reflection. A white wall. Let me paint a little bit of, there is a little red outlining that wall. I don't want to get it, oops, you have to be careful with this red. Don't want to get it too dark, and it's getting pretty dark. And there's a red that is right at the bottom of that wall. It's mixed with a little orange, so let's put that in. And see, I wanted to get all this color in because otherwise I'm going to get lost. Paint a little bit of green above the reflections. Some of these reflections that I've just painted are really too light. But as I say, I'm just getting, this is sort of an underpainting so that I can see what colors look good on this Venice painting. That's a little bright too. Actually, it doesn't make any difference if it's too bright or exactly the same color, because the more color I get in it, the more interesting it gets. And I'm mixing everything here. I just mixed, why not? I just mixed a little bit of Cerulean Blue into everything. And I'm reflecting that big bush. Actually, the way I'm using this brush now is a little different in a way. I am using this brush to get these little zigzag lines, and I'm using this part of the brush. Let's go ahead. I hope, but don't worry, because I will get them in somehow. Once in a while, I will use some white paint. Now, what I could have done is to go ahead, you see the way I outlined all my windows? Well, this is how I'm squeezing out some Winsor Newton Designer's Gouache, which is white paint. Squeeze it out here, and then show you another way that I could have done that masking solution or the outline is to take a little bit of that white paint and go ahead I'm going to be using this white paint later on in another place. I normally don't like to use the white paint. I want it all to look like watercolor, but you can tell that this was, it's called gouache, and it's an opaque paint. So let's do another window here, just to show you. What it looked like. So one way, if you don't have your masking fluid at home, but you have some white paint, you could cheat if you'd like to, and you could go ahead and use the white paint, all right? Since I have this smaller brush in my hand, I'm gonna go ahead and use it. And I'm again mixing my ultramarine blue, my burnt sienna, and okay, I'm going to go ahead and outline the bottom of the boat. Got a shape over here. This is the shape of the front, or I guess it's the front of the gondola. I'm going to make this boat a little darker now. And actually, let's see what I made it a cerulean blue, which is awfully light. So I'm going to mix my cerulean blue this time. Cerulean blue and ultramarine blue. Let's see what it comes out to be. Whoops. Yeah, that's better. You have to experiment and try different mixtures. So, and not to be satisfied with the first thing that you get. Actually, because of all these colors, it really sort of gets me all excited to use all these colors, because I don't always use a lot of color. And I'm going to make my boat darker. Let's see if I have another dark color here. And that is, let's see if it's dark enough. Oh, it's pretty dark. Let's try it out. Oh my goodness. Nice. This color is different. It's called Indigo. And it's really a dark bluish black. Seems to be darker than I can get by mixing the other two colors, at least right now. And because I have it like that, I feel like doing a little bit of that in the reflections of the water. Let's see what that looks like. Hope it's not too dark. No, I didn't make it too dark, so it's darker. And it's bluer. And this time I noticed that I'm using a different brush to do this. Let's put a few more little strokes here. Well, you know what I feel like doing? I feel like, before I forget, it could be white, but right now I'm going to make it a little color, and I'm going to use this piling here. And here's another piling. This time I'm making the piling in color, but I can change it later on, and I can add white to it. You know, let's paint some orange back here. Let's continue this wall over here. And right here, there's a series of steps going down. So I don't lose it. Why not paint this piling? And what color should I paint that piling? Let's see what I'm doing here. I'm painting it. This time I used a different color just to show you I'm using all my colors, which is great. This looks to me like it could be a raw sienna, which is sort of an orangey brown, or it could be a yellow ochre. Let's see what this turned out. Turned out a little darker. I'm going to do something else to those windows. And what I'm going to do, take my mixture of black and stuff and go inside the windows. And guess what? They are turning dark, and you see them better. This is like one big coloring book. Actually, this is where I use my white paint. Looks pretty good though. Okay, let's go ahead. And before we paint that with those windows on the right side, I want to take some of that raw sienna and I think I'm mixing it with a little I mixed it with a little gray. I don't know if I really like that, but let's go ahead and take, yeah, let's blend it a little bit. What I'm doing now is mixing the colors. I wanted it to get a little old looking. I don't know if I like it, but let's try it. And I'm not only using raw sienna, I just use other colors here too. It's beginning to look a little older. That's what's so attractive about Venice, is that old look, falling apart look, actually. Let's see. Do some. I told you that when I first started, I was just going to put the colors down, and now I just want to try some textures. What I did this time was I dried off my brush, and when I put the color down, I held my brush on the side. I don't know if you could hear it, and I just dragged. Oh, they don't like that. Dragged the brush over the building. Okay. So I can continue that building, and I probably will continue it. So let's go ahead. And this time again, did something different. Wet it so it dripped. I have a balcony over there. And actually, I shouldn't do this, but I will. While I'm saying balcony, I am taking, what happened? Oh yeah, I'm looking for my white paint, and I'm taking my narrow little brush, and I'm going to make a balcony someplace else. All right, but this time, instead of making the balcony, where I'm using masking solution, I'm going to go ahead and use white. Well, it was supposed to be white, but it sort of turned blue, which is not bad. I'm making a balcony with white paint. Oh. You know, I feel like putting some of that color, even though it might not be in the right place, I feel like putting a little bit of that color. Just feel like putting some of that color in the water. So let's take a little white paint, and let's go ahead and make the reflection. with white paint. Instead of going around it like this. Anyhow, I have to paint this boat a little darker. Mixing together reds, let's see if that got to be brown. Yeah, that did get brown, didn't it? And what I did was mix red and green, and that was a hooker's green, and I think it looks to me like a vermilion or something, and it's really dark now. I think it looks brown. Well, I like it, whatever it is. I'm going to try something else while I have this. Let's see if this works for you. And this is, I don't know if you remember, I told you, but I have to talk after I do this so it doesn't dry, and then I'll show you. Oh, yes. What I'm doing here works. The reason I didn't continue to talk is because I didn't want this paint to dry up. And I used the back of my brush, the beveled edge, to scrape off. Let's see. See, this is already dry, so it doesn't really scrape. Before I forget, let me go back and work on this black boat. And I have almost forgot that I used the color Indigo. Okay. Oh, I could go back right here. Oh, right here. Painting this black. Let's do one of the bushes here, and that will show you something different. I have 2 trees and the rest are bushes. Yeah, I want it dark. Now, before I painted it light, you must have thought, well, that's an awfully pale looking green, but that was just my underpainting, and it was a sort of a guide to show me where to put some colors. Okay, this is one tree. Now this tree is bigger, so it might be easier for me to do that tree by painting it all wet first, which is what I'm going to do. I still have some wet green on my brush, so I'm painting it all wet. I don't want that one to be exactly like the other one, so I have to stir up some color. Well, let's see if that's too blue. That's not bad. We'll keep it at least for the time being until I finish my painting and see what details I need to fix. I think what I will do is to use a sponge to get some of that bush in and see what happens. Well, I'm going to I have 2 sponges here. One of them is the kind of sponge that you use in your kitchen, which I cut up into little sponges, and they have little regular holes. And then there's another one, sponge, and I could, oh, okay, here's another one. This one is sort of an old, dirty sponge, which I like, and it doesn't seem to have many holes, but this one is great. You wouldn't believe it, because I can hold it in my hand, and it's very rough. At least I hope it doesn't fall apart. Oops. And it has different holes. So let's go ahead, dip it into the water, and let's see what happens. I'm gonna try it. Gonna try it in a different place now. This bush is gonna have flowers on it, and I want you to, I bet you're wondering how I'm gonna do the flowers. You see how nice this works? It works very nicely because I can hold it in my hand, and I could sort of go back over it more than one time. And you see these little white spots here? That's masking fluid too. Those are some flowers that I just took a big glob of ultramarine blue. Let's see what I have here. Wow, okay. I can go back a few more times here. Well, I did say I could go back a few more times. I hope I like this. I don't know. Hope you're paying attention, and you can go ahead and try. Oh, how'd that happen? Well, okay. I'm going to leave that there right now, just to show you something else. That was dark, and since it was dark, I was able to scrape off some of that, and my poor little sponge is about to give up. So I better hang on to it because it seems to be falling apart. Some of this might get changed eventually, but right now I'm going to leave it sort of a lonely little bush over here. I think I'll go ahead and do that bush too. Not much to do on it, actually. And I'll leave the two bushes alone, and I might work on, I think I'll put some of this bush right in front of this. I don't like the way that ends. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my smaller brush, look for my white paint, look for my yellow paint. I'm going to mix my yellow and white together, and I'm going to go ahead it works. It works pretty nicely. Another way I could have done this is to use masking fluid all over with the little dots. It'll show the white of the paper, and then remove it, and then paint the yellow. that's very time consuming, and I like to paint fast. So I'm just going to go ahead. Paint the flowers this way. I'll do another bush. We'll do it a different color. And this is, actually, this is the white gouache. Big bush here. You know, I could make part of the flowers. It could be more than one bush. It doesn't have to only be yellow. Paint what? A little bit more orange. That way, it picks up some of the orange in this wall. And let's put some orange flowers. I don't really know what kind of flowers these are. All right, now I want these pilings to show, and they're white. So this is sort of a white wall, but it doesn't have to be a white wall. I'm going to make some color, or maybe a gray in it or something, so that when I remove with my masking solution, the little pilings, part of them will stand out white. All right, let's get a little gray mixture in here. Funny, this is a gray. Let's make, I'm going to take a blue. Yeah. A little bit gray where the pilings are. And, well, what about the steps? We've got some steps over here. So let's go ahead and okay, I want to work on the water over here. Okay, I have so many colors here, I don't know what they're, that's some of the water below the wall. The bottom of that wall, sort of an orangey color. Probably has bricks. I know what I can do. I can go ahead. Let's see if it's going to work. Maybe make some, yeah, make some shadows from those bushes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to do one other thing to the water. Let's see if this is going to work. This is a little scary, but let's see. I think at this point, I'm going to take a little paper towel and wipe off some of this because I'm afraid too much color here. Yeah, what I'm doing now, hope it works, is I'm going over the entire, everything I did on the water with blue. Blue, oh, that happened by accident, but I think I'll leave it. And I could still work on this water again, but what color am I using now? I'm using Ultramarine Blue. Sounds like I keep using Ultramarine Blue, but it's a good color for my reflections here. This is a little white. I have to paint the inside of that boat because that white boat bothers me. I think what I'm going to do now is to put a shadow on one side of those pilings before I remove my masking solution or my masking fluid. Okay. Oh, I know what I want to do now. Let me show you another thing. These windows, part of them can be even darker. I told you I was just putting some light color down. Sort of fun, these windows have shutters on them, and when I get a little closer I can draw some of these shutters, but right now I'm too far away. And actually, while I have this in my hand, let's go ahead and there's a building over there, and I'm going to color that building a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing, but let's see. Do a little design on it here. Oh, I see something else I better do before I forget. And I'll tell you, it's this other boat back here. So, back to my Cerulean Blue, and pretty color. I have to do a little detail inside this boat to make it more realistic. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more shadow or more detail on the I might want to just at this point remove one little spot of masking solution, just so you can see what it looks like. And let's see if this is wet. You see how that comes off white? And let's take off one other thing here. Let's take off this piling here. And that looked, I don't know if I'll leave it white or painted color. I hope you enjoyed your trip to Venice, and I hope you try out all the things that I showed you. Some of the masking fluid, some of the sponges, and some of the techniques with your brush. Please join me again. Thanks for coming.